There are many frustrated within WWE over huge changes to SmackDown. WWE have also unified more championships on SmackDown, and CM Punk has responded to AEW divisiveness reports. Stay tuned for the news. Now, prior to last night's SmackDown, Worked Wrestling posted on Twitter a report that said that there was many frustrated in the locker room over changes to SmackDown. Now, we've seen since Vince's return, really, a lot of there's been a few weeks where there's been certain changes ahead of the show.
Yeah.
And many advertised matches have just not taken place. And it seems like last night was another case of that. In the report, they revealed that the planned and advertised triple threat match between LA Knight, Santos Escobar, and Butch would not be taking place. And instead, Knight would be facing Rey Mysterio. That match did take place, and Knight won it. Yeah, I'm very excited for next week. Get Money in the Bank.
He's got to win it.
He's got to win it, right? Who do you think's winning? Let us know in the comments below. But the advertised match between Baron Corbin and Cameron Grimes also failed to take place and was not featured in the show in any way from the looks of things. It was a very strange night in terms of all these matches were announced last week. Also, Bayley versus Shotzi was announced last week to take place, and it didn't take place.
I mean, following all of it, Fightful Select reported that most of SmackDown's script was changed, with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful confirming that SmackDown got Vince tonight. A lot of changes, which, it's not unexpected. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, right.
It's sort of, for a little while, it felt a little bit like sunshine and rainbows. Like, the brighter days come in, but every now and then we get this kind of stark reminder of who's in charge. But at the same time, it could be any number of things when you're looking at last minute changes. If you want to take it out of the usual change context here.
The Vince thing.
Yeah, which is usually just, I don't like it, tear it up. It could be that this is going to feed into future things, on the road, that we're heading down toward Money in the Bank, maybe even further. So there's a lot of things that could be tied into this in or around this. Maybe certain other things on the show needed a little bit more breathing room. There's a lot of reasons why things might get thrown out at the last minute, but the fact that it's been sort of tweaked all day by the sounds of it is sort of leaning back toward the standard Vince.
It seems like it's a Vince thing, but granted, the Vince made changes to Raw as well this past week, I believe, and I think that the segment that he replaced it with was better than what was planned, according to reports anyway. So it's very interesting to see that he's still making some changes to SmackDown here. But granted, the LA Knight Rey Mysterio match wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad change. It's just very weird that they would advertise so much for the show and none of it really take place. But also on SmackDown, WWE have unified some more championships.
Another one?
Oh my God, another one? We've seen it so often recently with WWE's thing being unifying belts and having a champion with 2 belts. Well, there's now 2 new champions
with 4 belts.
4 belts, yeah. Well, SmackDown played host to a championship unification match between the WWE Women's Tag Team Champion Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey against the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, my Scots. And it was a fairly competitive match, more so than I think many were expecting when you've got Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler in the ring. But they did in fact win the championships. They won the NXT Women Championships and
double submission finish as well. I love that.
Yeah, it's nice to see, right? It's just very strange that we saw the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions get called up. They've not really appeared on NXT since they got called up with the belts. And now the belts are no more.
Well, we've gone to the 2 belts phase for each person, and then next week I imagine there'll be 2 belts under some sort of silken cloth on a little podium, and they'll just be gold versions of both belts sellotaped together.
Painted. Yeah, spray painted gold. But yeah, after the match, Ronda Rousey taunted Raquel Rodriguez, who was sat at ringside. Raquel, obviously former Women's Tag Team Champion. She had a run recently. Unfortunately, she had to vacate the belt. But Raquel was out there and she said that she wanted a rematch for the tag titles we never lost. Ooh. Sam, who's she referring to when she says we?
It's only Big John Tender. No, so Shayna sort of actually questions who we is herself. And then from there, she mentioned it was Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan's music hits. She comes down. So we've got massive return from Liv. She's been out of action since May when she suffered a torn shoulder. We didn't quite know how long that was going to put her out of action. It wasn't really sort of openly talked about in terms of a time frame. We just knew that it wasn't mega serious.
Yes.
But as a result, she was forced to vacate the women's tag titles. And so this is just a natural natural kind of jumping on point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice to see her back and them reigniting that feud. Because
it's nice to see them just, tying a little knot in something instead of just kind of just going and kicking it under the rug and just it down.
It shows a little bit more attention paid to the women's tag team championships as well. I think having Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler with the belts kind of forces their hand a little bit more to be like, right, Ronda's a big deal. People, we pay, she's a big star. We should focus on that.
I mean, there's talk that we're eventually going to get Ronda versus Shayna if Ronda is looking to take any more potential time off or anything. So I think that the bigger deal you can make of the women's tag titles now that there is likely going to be a belt redesign, I imagine, for the undisputed factor of it. If we can make a really big deal of this run for them, having them then break up or having something kind of tear them apart only for them to turn on each other, it really would help having that build up to just kind of really, really put the cherry on top there with that one.
I'm intrigued to see where they take this match and if they place it. It feels like one that they could do at Money in the Bank just next weekend. But also at the same time, they may want a little bit more build to it and have Liv not return and then immediately lose, because it feels like if you've just given Ronda and Shayna the belts and unified the belts, you don't want to make them lose it so soon.
Liv does have the kind of get out of just come back from an injury. Obviously Shayna and Ronda are very technical wrestlers. They're just going to go straight for that injury, so you could really play off that maybe if you want to do it so quickly. But I am with you on that one. I think just having maybe a little bit more breathing room, let Liv get a couple of wins under her belt before we run into this brick wall, or it could just completely, reverse everything we're thinking. They take the belts back immediately, and that immediately triggers.
Yeah, it's an option. WWE could go that route and have them win the belts immediately. Who knows? But we'll keep an eye on that one. I'm excited to see Liv back, though. I think she's been fairly missed on SmackDown, especially in the recent months. She was really building momentum up. But moving over to Impact Wrestling, a former NXT star has made their return to the company. And of course, it's Zachary Wentz, formerly known as Nash Carter, former NXT Tag Team Champion with Wes Lee. He's made his return to Impact Wrestling, and he's teamed with, or reformed, the Rascals with Trey Miguel. It's very exciting.
I think this is a good get for Impact. I think Impact kind of bolstering names that their audience are familiar with, names that are synonymous with their brand. We've obviously seen Motor City Machine Guns kind of come back and already on a massive tear.
Yeah, right.
And we've got a little bit more news about that to come, but it's sort of, I like that Impact is maybe just trying to kind of, put all of those things back in there.
It feels a little bit, it's quite exciting Impact at the moment, and I think it goes in, like all wrestling companies, it goes in peaks and troughs, and recently they've just been building a wave of momentum.
For a company that's been dealt such a bad hand with injuries and a lot of other stuff as well, I think that it's nice to see Impact sort of going from strength to strength still in any way they can.
I mean, we had the recent news with Moose signing a new long-term contract with them. Fortunately, obviously, Josh Alexander with an injury, but Steve Macklin stepped up. He's had a great run there. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Motor City Machine Guns, which we'll talk about later on. But it's nice to see Zachary Wentz back in Impact. He was a big part of that a couple of years ago before he went to WWE, so keeping an eye on that. But we've also got some news about the AEW video game Fight Forever, because the full roster has been revealed on the official AEW Games Twitter account. Now, we're not going to break down the entire roster here because there was over 50 names and that would take us a little bit too long. But some of the key highlights.
Sprint, just as fast as we can.
I mean, I've done graded. You all know how fast. Challenge Excalibur. But some of the highlights: CM Punk, MJF, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Jade Cargill, Christian Cage, and Owen Hart, plus many, many more. It's quite a decent enough roster size for starting the game, I think. But obviously there'll be some more playable characters added via DLC, such as FTR and Hook, which they've already announced.
I think it makes sense as well if they have a team that is able to work, because I mean it takes forever to actually make character models and character models and stuff, so I imagine there's a lot of stuff maybe already in the pipeline. But it's interesting if we are going to get DLC packs, because it means, what if somebody comes to AEW, is all of a sudden massively successful, massively popular with the audience, you can just get that kind of queued up, drop it right into the game.
Yep. But it's nice to see them finally announce the full roster. They've been kind of hush on that one over the past few months. Usually for a wrestling video game, we see a roster well in advance. But that's the full roster revealed. Let us know who you're most excited to play as, because there's a lot of people on there that I think there's some interesting matchups. CM Punk, Kenny Omega. That would be one that I think many people will want to try out.
I'm just excited to play as Kenny. Like in a 3D action.
Not Fire Pro.
Not Fire Pro.
But we will have a review of the game coming next week, so keep an eye on that one for both cultaholic.com and the YouTube channel right here. But we're going to end things on CM Punk, actually. He's kind of a big talking point still in the wrestling world, obviously returning to Collision last week. I know, right? You know, sick of him yet. But Dax Harwood also took to Twitter to address the reports of a top star in AEW leaving Dynamite in a bad mood because a certain individual, CM Punk, was in attendance, and the reports that CM Punk is a ticking time bomb. He said, "I can't thank everyone in AEW enough for how well they treated Finlay this week at AEW Dynamite. You all made her feel so special. If there is a divisiveness that a certain individual is reporting, I didn't see it at all. Check the Collision locker room too. This is a family." Addressing the report directly, though, he said, "This one will get me some heat, but F it. It needs to be said, whatever top star left the show in a bad mood because a certain individual was there, instead of running to Dave, why not tell the individual face to face? That's how we used to do things back in the day."
Sorry. I don't know why that made me giggle, but just like back in my day, back in 2010, we used to have Family Guy and guns and dominoes and fights in car parks.
The man is, back in NXT, back in 2015, when they were all playing WWE 2K15. But it feels like, fair enough, you should speak to the individual instead of like going behind people's backs. But at the same time, the last time someone did go up and personally address it, we saw what happened at All Out. And I feel like there's a bit of hesitancy in the locker room to actually do that.
Just residual kind of bad feelings toward it. I do agree, though. I think that, in instances like this, it's easier and it's better in the long run, even though it might be awkward, to just deal with it face to face, right?
Yeah, well, CM Punk has also responded to the reports too, as he posted on his Instagram story a photo of himself in his dressing gown while Rancid's song Time Bomb is playing. I actually think it's quite it's a good song, and it's also funny, a very funny photo. Punk has done a lot of these addressing reports where he's on his Instagram story and just makes a little bit of a joke about it, but he
could just upload a video of like listening to "And Out Come the Wolves" in full, then I'd probably watch it about 4 times. So.
I bet that's CM Punk responding to it. I think it's going to be interesting to see him in the coming weeks. Obviously, he's just back in the company now, but over the next few weeks, it'll play a vital role in how things go in the locker room and what the morale is.
There is talk, that he is very much being the company man and everything at the minute. And it's sort of, if everything's on the right page, that's what you want ultimately, right? So no matter how awkward it is now, if things can be ironed out, if everything can kind of get in the right direction eventually, then it's worth kind of going through this little bit of awkward phase first.
Yeah, well, that's all we have for you just now. We've got a lot of content coming up this weekend because it's Forbidden Door.
Damn right it is.
We're going to walk through that door.
A million matches. Here we go.
Oh, it's going to be a long night, but me and Tom will be reacting to it from midnight tomorrow night, Sunday night. We will be going live on youtube.com/cultaholic/live, but also we will have what happened immediately following the show. We'll have WTF moments. We'll have news. We'll have all of the usual content that you like to consume. Let us also know, I've asked you to let us know a lot of things in the comments, but let us know what match you're most excited for, because personally, it's got to be Okada versus Danielson.
I need this hooking up to my veins immediately.
Oh, that's going to be good. But we will see you later on. Go and enjoy some wrestling.